ईश्वरानुग्रहं विना ईश्वरानुग्रहादेव मुक्तिरित्येष I'm not interested. And this is where the problem is with all these neo-Vedantic works. Eckhart Tolle, yeah, takes a toll on Ishvara. That's why it's called no Ishvara. And if they want to refer to Ishvara, they say universe. You know, they are constrained to say universe, but they will not talk about Ishvara. And the New Age movement, you know, it's all me, it's all wonderful. I manifest things, and you know, there is no understanding of Ishvara. And so there is it's a Vedantic flop, you know. And somebody sent me this interview with Eckhart Tolle and that famous lady, Oprah. And did anybody see that? You saw that?
Yes.
And you know, and then so, in fact, she came out in the interview as more of a bhakta than him. She's like, so what is powering the universe? What is, you know, she's pushing him. And he says, oh, it's nothing. It's all just random molecules, you know, just coming into, becoming planets and becoming, you know, everything. And the same random molecules made him write the books. You know, made not just him, people like him write the books because there is no Ishvara. There is only Tvam Pada Vichara, an analysis into the word you, but there is no Tat Pada Vichara. Tat means that which is the cause of the universe. There is no Tat, only Tvam. And how far can you go with analyzing you? You can say, okay, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the senses, I am the witness. Then you stop there. Keep on witnessing everything, you know. That does not give happiness because I'm still striving. Well, before I was striving, now I'm witnessing that I'm striving. Before I was just plain sad, now I'm the witness of the sadness. Big deal. What does that do? Nothing. You know, you watch the sadness, it's not any better. Little bit of respite you get, okay, fine, I'm the watcher, I'm the Sakshi. But to be able, the next step is to be able to see that Sakshi as no less than Jagat Sakshi, that which is Bhagavan, and appreciate the sadness as a manifestation of the psychological order, which is really in order, and hit by which I am helpless, and recognizing that bhakti in that helplessness, recognizing Ishvara in that helplessness, I Ishvarize the sorrow, I Ishvarize the anger, I Ishvarize the fear. Without that there is what, you know, how can there be anything without that? So that bhakti is alone leading to mukti, because that bhakti taps in the grace. Even Christians talk about grace, but we have a slightly different definition. In Christianity, grace is dispensed. In Hinduism, grace is earned. Very big difference. So grace is dispensed means Bhagavan will look smilingly at somebody and frowningly at somebody. No reason. Why? So some are chosen to get the grace, and you just hope that you are the chosen one. Like an excited schoolboy, you know, waiting to be chosen for the sports team or to represent the school in the debate. An excited child. Oh, maybe the teacher will choose me. That same, you know, that same kind of a transference is done on Bhagavan. Here it's a transference without, you know, that is an illogical transference, that Bhagavan will choose me because, you know, my father did not choose me. So maybe to Bhagavan I will become special. It's okay in the beginning, but one has to grow out of that. And if one makes it into that itself into a religion, then it is very, it is very subject to subjectivity. Then Bhagavan himself becomes subjective, herself himself becomes subjective, because Bhagavan is saying, I like you over there, sitting in this place, sitting in India, I like you, therefore I'm going to bless you with this. Then what about here? I don't like all the people there. And you know what, I don't like the place itself. Send a tsunami. Yeah. And that's why whenever there is any tsunami, the Bible pushers, first of all, they will send a food packets with the Bible attached to it. And then they will say, if you accept the food packet, your name from Subramaniam has become Sam. And then thirdly, they will write a blog saying, the reason why the tsunami hit these parts is because there is, you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior. That is why Jesus got angry and wiped it out. And Bhagavan gets angry, really. What hope is there for us? If Bhagavan needs anger management classes, don't take out your anger on your own praja, on your own subject. Bhagavan is subject to, needing anger management classes, then I become depressed, because what hope is there for me? That which is called Bhagavan is free of, Nairgrinya dosha, two fallacies. Nairgrinya dosha means the fallacy of grina. Nairgrinya. So Bhagavan is Nairgrinya, he doesn't have grina dosha. Nairgrinya means no, no hatred towards anything. And then by extension, no partiality towards anything. That's the second fallacy, is that Bhagavan is partial. Bhagavan hates this. Bhagavan loves this. There is no love or hate. Those are all dualistic and opposed sentiments of Ragadvesha. That's all it is. So Bhagavan is free of Ragadvesha. And so if I get bad karma, if I get coal in the stocking, as we were seeing before the break, the coal in the stocking comes from what? My own papa karma presented in a certain way. So my own papa karma recycled and given back to me. That's all it is. And so, therefore, without the grace of Bhagavan, and the grace again defined as that underground, possibility that is tapped into, like even the underground water. Underground water is there, so you cannot go thirsty, provided what? Provided what? You have to dig. You have to dig, either with a bore well or with your hands or with something. You have to dig. In Maharashtra, in a state in India, so 1 month back the news came, which has gone through a very bad drought in this, summer, and certain parts of it very dry. And then this woman was walking so many miles. The government was not doing much. The woman is walking so many miles, and her husband felt bad for her and single-handedly, along with a few of his friends, dug her a well right in the village. So that everybody in the village, instead of walking so many kilometers away, they could all, and everybody laughed at him. Oh, you are going to dig a well with 4 of your friends? You are foolish, And he said, no, I'm just going to dig. I'm going to keep on digging. And after 40 days, exactly, digging, 4 people digging for 40 days, then the water came out and then the government took over. Okay, we will now finish. We will now finish the digging, bring in the borewell machine. Before that, nobody was even listening to him. And then, we'll take the credit. We brought water to the village. But the man said, okay, fine, take it, But the main thing was the water had already come to the village. And so like this, you can't say that I'm hungry when there is food in the fridge. Food is in the fridge or on the pantry. You have to bring it out or you have to cook it. You cannot say food is in the fridge, I'm going to eat the fridge. It's not going to work. Yeah, I'm going to gnaw at the door and the handle. It's not going to work. You have to open the fridge. Some effort is required, and that's why bhakti is an effort that translates this grace in the form of your own good karma, is that underground aquifer. Your own good karma is that water. But no, everyone else has an aquifer. I have just dry bones, underneath. Not possible. Think of how many lifetimes you've led. You may not have located the aquifer, you may take some time finding it and digging it, but it is there. Finding it and digging it means becoming a bhakta. That is digging it. The tools for digging are your own shraddha is the pickaxe. Your bhakti is the axe that digs through this water and through this dry, hard rock. And you dig through, and underneath is this flowing water. Why was it away from you? Because there was a pratibandha. What is pratibandha? An obstacle. There was a firewall between between you and the punya. You are not getting the beams. Yeah. So therefore you have to dig a little harder. That's all it is. Yeah. You dig a little harder, you put a little bhakti, and the wall disappears. The wall in the heart disappears. And then all you have is that grace manifests and fructifies. So and Bhagavan can't wait to give you the grace. Bhagavan says, wait, don't pray so hard. I'm still gift wrapping this one. Yeah, I'm still gift wrapping this one. Wait, slow down your prayer. That's why when you start doing yajnas, Indra gets very worried. That you might displace him. And so he will send some obstacles in the form of baby asuras, to drop a crow's wing into the crow's feather into the yajna or something like that to defile it so that you have to start all over again. So bhakti, is your own karma that is unleashed like an inoculation where you vaccinate yourself from the onslaught of wrong karma. And usually the wrong karma results in Guru not knocking at the door, because that's the ultimate form of the blessing. Yeah. So the Guru not knocking at the door, this jnanam not coming, and me never graduating to understanding the truth of myself, that is all, inhibition. That's all the inhibition I have to remove. And me suddenly going away from the knowledge, saying, I'm not interested. Right? How can you not be interested? It is you. That means you're saying, I'm not interested in myself. Yeah, that's right, I'm not interested in myself. Well, you need help. And that help is bhakti here. That help is bhakti. Bhakti is psychotherapy, choosing Bhagavan as the therapist. Where you validate Bhagavan to validate you. That's what you do to the therapist. You don't go to a therapist who has 1 star on the internet. Yeah, which his wife gave him, feeling sorry. The wife gave, at least she should have given 5. She didn't think he deserved it. So, feeling sorry for him, she wrote a review giving him 1 star. That's the sole review, correct? Will you go to the therapist like that? No. You have to feel good about going to the therapist, and you have to validate the therapist. And you have to feel good and saying, oh, he or she has written a paper. Oh, they belong to this association. Oh, they have done this. Oh, these are the kinds of issues they excel in. Oh, my therapist knows nothing like my therapist. Wonderful person. You have to keep saying that, otherwise the therapy will not work. If you say, idiot, then you better not go. So I could do better. Do better. Do more research. You have to validate the therapist. Usually what happens, you do the research, you validate the therapist, and you pay them to validate you. Wow, fantastic. And this is exactly what is happening with the bhakti psychotherapy. Bhakti is psychotherapy. You validate Bhagavan by saying, you are Sarvajna, you are Sarvashaktiman, you are the best, east or west, oh how cute you look. There may be many shrines in the whole world, but you in this particular shrine is delightful to me. The other shrine, I'll just, do a little namaskar. In front of you, I'll lie down flat because you are special to me. That thing has to come. It's a personal relationship. That's why it's called Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata is like the soap that you use, yeah. You will not change the brand if it works. Because it works. And if it goes, if there is supposing news in the paper that this brand is going out of stock, they are going to stop manufacturing this brand, you will go to all the shops and buy enough to last at least this janma, if not the next one. So that is what the whole thing is. That much you love your soap, it's this Ishta Devata. And Devata is like soap, because that inner cleansing Bhagavan is doing. Bhagavan is soap. Yeah. That's why it is called Sopadhikam Brahma. Upadhina saha vartate. Yeah. See, this is all. The sages knew. Yeah. This is an inner soap. Bhagavan, relating to Bhagavan is inner soap. That is why that Brahman to which I relate is called Sopadhikam. Upadhina saha vartate. There is a particular kind of a compound with a prefix sa. Sa stands for tena saha vartate. It remains with it, or it lives with it. So Brahman with upadhi of my cute Bhagavan is called Sopadhikam. That's why people will die to defend their manifestation. Vishnu for me, not for you. My Vishnu, my Bhagavan. And there is a personal. That's why, unfortunately, they say personal God, impersonal God. It doesn't make. This is what they call, badly translated as personal God. A God that is personal to me. That's what it is. And so, that is the relationship that is needed. So you can talk to this Bhagavan and you can put this Bhagavan to work on your behalf. How? Through prayer. Because that prayer unleashes, cuts all the cords of those pratibandhas. Cuts the cords of the pratibandhas. Pratibandhas, obstacles. Physical obstacles, financial obstacles, mental obstacles, emotional obstacles. These are what stop me from enjoying my life and enjoying myself. So those cords are cut merely through an act of prayer. Even if you feel you're faking it, you're actually making it. Yeah, even a fake prayer is a prayer, really. Because one day you'll just throw a flower. Yeah, what am I doing? Come on, here. You want flower? Here you go. And then you say, I don't even want to look, here you go. And then you say, oh, you're happy now, you got the flower, you're forced to look. And then you say, oh, you don't look too bad. You seem to be all right. And so, really, it's like blue cheese. Who likes blue cheese? No one, at least not people from India. In India, when you are offered blue cheese, this happened to me at some place, they said, will you have some blue cheese? I said, what's that? No, it is cheese that is got a fungus in it, a special kind of fungus. As soon as I heard the fungus, I just wanted to leave that place where they were serving fungus. First of all, cheese itself is a form of fungus. And then fungus on top of fungus, no thank you. That's how every Indian starts off. Blue cheese, no. Then another part, you can have a little bit. And then you kind of put a clothespin on the nose and eat it. And then what happens? Well, it's not too bad. Maybe I'll have a little more. And after that, without going to the supermarket and having that blue cheese and putting it in your fridge, your week is not complete. Your weekly visit to the supermarket includes blue cheese on the top of the list, not just because it's alphabetical list, because it's terms of priority. Yeah, alpha sprouts, cheese, not an alphabetical list. In terms of priority, it is there. How did it get there? Because you live with anything for a while, you relate to anything for a while, you will end up liking it. Atmanastvamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. One is in love with love, one is not a hater. Really, all there is love. So anything. There was one ugly dog contest, and the winner of the contest, it was a sight to look at, poor thing. It had had some facial surgeries and it had had some hair fall, and it was a sight to look at. And of course, nobody wanted it. How did it? Then it loved the owner, and one side of the jaw was gone, so it was only teeth on this side, and all these things were very ugly, really. and nobody would, it was not at all lovable to look at. And the owner was holding it with beaming pride. Oh, my dog won the ugly dog contest, a very mixed, dubious blessing. And she was showing off the dog, and they had an interview. And then she was asked, so how come you love this dog so much, and how come you got this dog? So she said that she went to the shelter, did not like anything, and then that this one had come just into that shelter because, somebody, it had been in a fire, that's what it was, and so it had lost its hair and skin and had to have a graft and surgery. And then they said, this is the one that's going to be killed first because it was not a no-kill shelter. So somehow she got, and they asked, they asked outright, you didn't like anything else today, will you please take this one? And she first thought was, are you kidding? Such nice dogs I did not like, this one I will like. And then they said, oh poor thing, it will be killed. So somehow she just took it home. In the first few days, she just fed it in a different room because she could not stand the sight of it eating, dribbling through all it, because it doesn't have lips on one side. And she just said, just whatever. And afterwards, she grew to love it. And not only that, in the contest, everybody grew to love it because it had a very lovable nature. So like this, you live with anything, even a pet rock. Yeah. Whether you live with a pet or a pet rock, you learn to love it. We also have pet rock, we call it Shiva. That's Shiva is our pet rock. So we don't make fun of you for going to the market and spending so much money and buying a pet rock. We have it ourselves, we just order it from India. That's all. We call it Shiva, you may call it something else. So you can't but love something that you have. So because that love is your Swarupa. When it comes out, it is called Ananda, it is compassion, it is joy, but it is really that latent form is love. Blatant, it is joy. Latent, it is just love. And so that love is inhibited, and that's what is called pratibandha. That love is not expressed or turns into hate, which is really not there. It turns into hate because there are blockages in the heart. Like, what is that called? Arteriosclerosis. It's a sclerosis. There is blockages. And bhakti melts that sclerosis. Because the blockages are the effect of previous karma. And so I unleash new karma in order to inoculate myself and open up the blockages. So the water starts flowing. There is no longer a potential. It starts flowing. And I start becoming more and more delightful and delighted. And this is what the whole thing is. So any kind of blockages, mental, physical, emotional, financial, bhakti is the answer, because I unleash new karma that has the power to combat that previous karma, both of which are adrishta, unseen. And that it combats that and creates new antibodies. Yeah. Inoculates me against bad karma, which is the form of obstacles, which is in the form of sorrow, fear, etc. And this is what is, it says that Ishvara Anugraham, this is Anugraha. This is not something that is just a dispensed, like how you dispense from a pump. It's not like a lotion. Anugraha is there for everyone. It is extracted through the karma called bhakti. Bhakti is karma because you do bhakti. Even if you say, I just sit and meditate, that is manasam karma. If you say, I do bhajans, that is oral vachikam karma. If you say, I do puja or any form of relationship, that is what? Kayikam, physicalized action. So, nahi kaschit bhaven muktah ishvara anugrahat Vina, Ishvara Anugraham Vina. So, actually it should be Ishvara Anugraha, but Vina takes second case. So, therefore, Nahi Kaschit Bhaven Muktaha. Nobody can be free without Bhagavan's grace. And I have already defined grace here. Ishvara Anugrahadeva Muktihi iti Muktihi Esha Nishchayaha. This has been determined Not by him, he is bringing it out that by Vedanta sages and writers and the Upanishad itself and the Bhagavad Gita, all the exalted texts of Vedanta have determined that without bhakti there is no mukti. Now, how does this work? The next one talks about it. Ishvarah paripurnatvat
Ishvarah paripurnatvat
न तु किञ्चिदपेक्षते
न तु किञ्चिदपेक्षते
प्रीत्यैवाशु प्रसन्नः सन्
प्रीत्यैवाशु प्रसन्नः सन्
कुर्याद् परं कुर्यादनुग्रहम्
परं कुर्यादनुग्रहम्
ईश्वरः परिपूर्णत्वात्
ईश्वरः परिपूर्णत्वात्
न तु किञ्चिदपेक्षते
न तु किञ्चिदपेक्षते
प्रीत्यैवाशु प्रसन्नः सन्
प्रीत्यैवाशु प्रसन्नः सन्
परं कुर्यादनुग्रहम्.
परं कुर्यादनुग्रहम्.
So why does this prayer work? Prayer means it's actually two things. One is it's an expression of my helplessness. That's a prayer, correct? And it's a followed by the refrain, give me, give me, give me. This, I am helpless, help me, help me, help me. Trahimam, pahimam, that's the refrain of every prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. Doesn't matter, across the board, wherever you go. Give us this day, give us this, give us that. Give me, give me, give me. Why do you have to give me, give me? Because I don't have and I can't have and I lack. So this is the two components of prayer. I lack. That's why my life is lackluster. Yeah, I lack luster. I don't lack luster, but I lack the recognition of this luster. So that's why my life is lackluster. And therefore what? So therefore, I lack becomes the first line of every prayer. And the second line is, please fill this lack. Second line of the prayer. Third line of the prayer, or maybe this is the first line of the prayer, doesn't matter. You who are free of lack, correct? Then only the lack will be filled. If you lack something and go to someone who is another lack, another double lack, then what will happen? That's why you have to resort to a cosmetic brand called Lakme. That's why it acknowledges, yes, everything you lack. That's why you please buy this product. So one lack cannot go to another lack to fill the lack, because the other one is also carrying a begging bowl. Please. No, but my begging bowl came first. This is what happens. This is what is called fight in a marriage. No, I asked first. I have more lack than you. Look at my begging bowl. It is empty. Look at my begging bowl. Even the bottom is not there. It's a bottomless bowl. Bottomless pit of wants I am. Very proudly I advertise myself. And I'm just looking for you to complete it. Unfortunately, you is a local you. Local you with more lacks. Correct? So, therefore, the first line of every prayer is you who I hope to be the non-lacking one. And I'm going to invoke you as the non-lacking one. Hello, non-lacking one. All-knowing, all-might, omniscient, omnipresent. Who is praying? Small knowledge, the one who feels at odds with oneself, the one who feels lack and lackluster. That is the one praying to this altar of the Almighty, the one with no might at all. And then what? The last line is, therefore give me, because what do you lack? Nothing. And some very nice prayers are there like this. There are prayers which says, all it takes for you is to open the eyes and my fortune will be changed. Oh, you conjuice Bhagavan. Oh, you stingy, parsimonious fellow. Can't you just open your eyes and look at me? my fortune will be changed. And you are refusing to look at me. It's a poet's prayer. Very beautiful. Meaning all that you need to do is just look at me and my life will be changed. And even there, you are exercising parsimony by giving only a sidelong kataksha glance. All the Bhagavan's eyes are only half open because one cannot stand to look at oneself. Ishvara looking at Ishvara, first reason. Second reason also is that when you look at Ishvara in all forms like Arjuna, you get scared because there is that duality. Third reason, Bhagavan being what is that, Koshadhyaksha, sitting on the treasury of all sources, and if the full eye contact is made, then everything will belong to you. Yeah, but everything already belongs to me. But do you know that? No. And when things are given in plenty, when the person does not merit them, and when the person does not need to have them, it disturbs the balance of the universe. This is what happened to Rukmini. This is what happened to, that Sudama. Sudama, and Krishna were classmates in the ashram of Guru Sandipani. And Sudama and Krishna went their ways, so Krishna became the king, and Sudama was just so poor. Just a poor fellow, and not very enterprising, did not know how to advertise himself, and therefore made no money. 4 or 5 children, and they were all dressed in tatters, they didn't have shoes, and they were living in a shack somewhere. And Sudama's wife was always nagging him. You said that the king of Dwaraka is your childhood classmate. Which idiot won't go there and ask for something? You must go and ask. He can change our lives. No, I can't ask. He's my friend just for my love. I just love him. I don't want to ask anything. One day, she just put him in the dog house. Even though they were too poor to afford one, she put him out of the house and shut the door. And but what about my children? I want to see my children. You can't see your children till you go to Krishna and ask them to just put some clothes on their back. And so unwillingly he goes, and then she opens the door. Then he says, I can't go empty-handed to visit my friend. You have to make something. So she makes poha, sweet poha, just some beaten rice with some jaggery she puts and makes, not the 5-star version with coconut milk and all that, but the low, the peasant version, with some peanut powder and protein, and because then it becomes a complete meal, and then a little bit of jaggery and wet rice. And so he carries that in a packet and then wraps it and takes it. And Krishna is so thrilled. First of all, at the palace, they mistake him for riffraff and they, beat him at the door. Krishna comes and rescues him and says, what are you doing? He's my friend. And he puts salve, washes his feet, takes him in, and then makes him sit right next to him on the throne with himself and Rukmini. And he says, how are you? How is your family? How many children do you have? Asks all the stories. And then, he doesn't have the mouth to ask anything because he's not that kind of a person. And so he instead, he's also too ashamed to offer this poultice of beaten rice. And he says, he looks at the palace and he looks at the food that he's being served. And, everything comes in a golden plate, golden spoon, golden dishes, and all just shining. So many kinds of things. And he will want this. I know as a child he liked this, but not now. I'm just not even going to say I have it. But Krishna is not called omniscient for nothing. Krishna says, what did you bring me? I see a bag. What did you bring? No, nothing. It's just, just some food for my journey. He says, I want that. Give me that. And he says, oh, pohe, very nice. I'm going to have some. And he eats one handful. And over there, what happens? Their shack turns into a mansion just by him eating this. He's so happy. He just eats one handful, one mouthful. And then the shack turns into a palace. The whole neighborhood is transformed from being a low grade, place which everybody in that side of town used to catch hold of their wallets and purses tightly, that kind of a town. There was that side of town. But it has become a gentrified neighborhood. And his house becomes a palace. Then, unbeknownst to Sudama is sitting there next to Krishna. He doesn't know what's happened. And then the next handful he eats. And all the riches come to their house. The third handful he is eating. And then the children are all transformed. Everything has happened. The third handful he's about to eat, Rukmini catches hold of his hand and says, no more. And this story, if you don't understand the metaphor, people start saying Rukmini was jealous that all the wealth will go to Sudama. That's why she stopped. Rukmini is Bhagavati, okay? She is non-separate from Krishna. She is his Shakti. So the Shakti understands that the cosmic balance will be disturbed if you get more than your due. You get your due, therefore, you see? So then she stops she stops his hand and then just shakes her head. Lord Krishna understands. And then says, okay, I'll save this for later. I won't eat it now. But you see, that is that grace. The grace is in not expecting anything. Who is not expecting anything? Not you. You are a bag of wants. The bhakta, a big vat of wants, a cauldron of wants. Bhagavan natu kinchid apekshate. Bhagavan is not expecting anything. He is not thinking that when I eat this, I have to give something. He is just enjoying the food. He just simply is enjoying because he is, Bhagavan Krishna is described as Ananda Swarupa. And who are you? Ananda wannabe. That's what. You are wannabe Ananda. He is already Ananda. Uninhibited Ananda. You are what? Kabhi kabhi Ananda, inhibited Ananda. That's the only difference. And so Bhagavan reflects and projects that Ananda, and it's not true that your prayer and your bhakti makes him happy, because a happy person cannot be made happy. But what does your prayer do? That delight gets manifested into grace. So before your prayer, Bhagavan already quietly happy, like a placid ocean on a calm day, Pacific Ocean on a calm day, rare, but it is there. And then what? And then your prayer comes, Bhagavan starts to roar happily, makes wonderful sounds which translate into grace, your own karma being given back to you. Because for every mouthful he ate, that was his own karma. That his own good karma, being symbolized into that poha, into the poor man's, gift. So therefore, patram pushpam phalam toyam, whether it's a water, whether it's a leaf, a flower, anything I'm happy, yo me bhaktya prayachati, whoever gives me, anything that they can afford. Don't sit on a bed of riches and say, okay, patram pushpam phalam toyam, here is some water for you. No. If you can afford. If you can't afford, if you're like Sudama, dry poha it is. That's all it is. Some beaten rice. And doesn't matter. It's not the expensiveness of the gift. It is the bhavana, it is the feeling, that authenticity, the feeling of authenticity that powers the gift, empowers your karma to unleash, because Bhagavan doesn't want anything from you. Bhagavan is all fulfilled, and then seeing you so devout, what happens? That fulfillment takes on the form of a manifest Ananda, which is just your own grace and your own Ananda repackaged and being returned to you. So, therefore, Ishvaraha, let us see the verse with that introduction. Ishvaraha paripurnatvat, paripurnaha, total, complete, in all direction, always. You look at money, who does all the money belong to? Ishvara. Whatever question I ask, what is the answer? Ishvara. And who do all the mineral resources like gold belong to? Ishvara. Who does all the knowledge belong to? Ishvara. Who does all the strength belong to? Ishvara. Who does all the overlordship belong to? Ishvara. Who does all the vairagya belong to? Ishvara. Yes, this is what is called the 6 forms of bhaga. Everything belongs to Ishvara, so you can't give Ishvara anything that is not already there. In fact, we say, there is a line in Hindi prayer, Tera tujhko arpan, what you give, only I can give back to you. But at least you are giving back. That is the idea. That, therefore you are making 108 laddus, you say for Ganesha, it's actually for you. But you at least offer it. It's actually because you have run out of snacks in the house and you would like to have something in the dabba, because you are trying to, all the dabbas are empty, and so you want to make some chaklis and you want to make some laddus. And you say this is for Krishna, chaklis are for Krishna and laddus are for, not me, Ganesha. And Ganesha eats not a single one. And all of them you can count, it will all be intact. And it will go into your dabba, first into the dabba outside, then into this dabba inside. Dabba means container. Yeah. Because this dabba is always empty. So when that dabba is full, that little transfer takes place from that dabba to this dabba. Yeah. And, so therefore, this is all for you. So you offer modakas, and that's why people don't understand. He's not going to eat, so why should I make? And if I make, it's for me. Why not go straight from the frying pan to the dabbas? From the cooking, pot to the dabbas. Why does it have to go through him? It's an acknowledgement of that all the resources you have given. You have made me, samartha, fit enough to want this laddu, fit enough to enjoy this laddu, fit enough to make this. Therefore, here, just glance at it, so that if there is anything that will give me indigestion, it will go. There will be no indigestion as a result of, just put your hand on it, put your eyes on it. It's a bhavana. It's like, it's all yours. Because you have made me capable of this, I offer this to you. And so Bhagavan, who is already happy, says, yes, eat one more extra, nothing will happen. Usually your limit is 2, but today you can have 3. But it's a ball of sugar syrup, doesn't matter, have it. So this is just out of the sheer happiness. And in fact, in your own lives you can see it. When you're really happy and non-complaining, you tend to have more audarya. Audarya means accommodation, greatness. Even annoying things happen, you say, chalo, chhod diya, doesn't matter, left. Somebody cuts across, oh, they are having a bad day, let it be. I'm okay. I'm okay enough to absorb everything that is non-okay. And this Bhagavan is, okay with, okay in golden letters. Nothing is non-okay. So, Ishvaraha, is called Ashutoshaha, easily pleased, because you're not trying to get someone out of depression. One is already pleased. Only the pleased becomes pleased. And the Ishvara is complete. Everything belongs to Ishvara. Paripurnatvat nachu kinchid apekshate. Does not want anything from the bhakta. Not even bhakti. Pritya eva ashuk prasannaha. So Priti here means love. Pleased by love. What love? The love in your heart that is making you offer something at the altar. Pleased by that love. Why is Bhagavan pleased by that love? Because Bhagavan is all love. So when that love meets this love, all that happens is pleasure abounds. That's all it is. So this love contacts that love. So the tree is in love with the forest, and when the tree expresses that love for the forest, it's all love. The forest cannot but love back. The tree, that's all it is. It's a kind of so the tree of course is part of the forest, like the individual, is included in Bhagavan. But in prayer and in this expression of love, the difference is highlighted. The individual relates to the total is free of want, and therefore when the individual is relating to the total, the individual is also free of wants, because all the wants get submerged in that limitless wantlessness, and so the individual is just, just the prayer becomes a nimitta to bring out this preeti. So Bhagavan then what? Becomes pleased. This is the regular layperson's view, but becomes pleased means what? Completely is just happy with, because you are happy. That's all. And that happiness, son becoming happy, param kuryad anugraham, whatever you want becomes, true. Why? Because everything that you want is placed on an altar that doesn't want anything. Just like the modaks are placed on the altar on a, Ganesha that is non-wanting Ganesha, only in front of a non-wanting Ganesha you place the modaks, and then all the modaks you get back, laddus you get back, correct? Yeah. Similarly, you place all your wants on a wantonly happy, wantless Ishvara. Then what happens? That Ishvara, who is not wanting anything, becomes an altar for your wants to get fulfilled, provided your karma allows it. That's all it is. Yeah. So, therefore, this is what the whole thing is. And the whole thing is, so param kuryad anugraham. So param anugraham is the ultimate blessing for knowledge. Ishvara doesn't directly give the knowledge. Ishvara directly sends a guru to give the knowledge, sends the shastra, Suddenly you're walking on the, this also is another story that had come in the paper. This man is walking on the street and then he's hit by a book that somebody has flung from a flat upstairs. And he looks, the book is Bhagavad Gita. Bada print, big print Bhagavad Gita, thick book, somebody flung it. And it landed on his head, temporarily knocked him off. He fell down, lost his balance, fell down. And then it opened to a page where is exactly, I forget what the verse was, but it was exactly what he was looking for. So guidance comes in all ways. And then he looked, and then finally they found out that somebody got angry with Bhagavan and threw the Bhagavad Gita out of the window. This doesn't work. See how the Bhagavad Gita does not stop blessing. Even when you think it doesn't work, it's blessing somebody on the street. Not an ordinary, book. Not Newton's thermodynamics he threw. Even that is also Saraswati, but still, directly Bhagavad Gita. And this man wanted that, and after nursing the, little, police siren on his head, he was very happy. And it turned him into an instant bhakta. So it takes, it's amazing how these karmas are, interconnected. And then, that's how he knew the owner, because this woman felt guilty and came down to retrieve and dust off the book and, kiss the book and keep it back. So this is how it is. So it blesses in so many ways. And this happened, I was witness to another such thing in a satsang. And there was one lady who was helping out in somebody's house, and she was having so many problems, and she was just burning candles at both ends, and everybody was telling her, from what I could understand. I was just sitting and watching everything. In somebody's house there was a puja, and they were getting things ready for Abhisheka. And I was sitting and watching everything, and and this lady said, everybody said, you need to stop burning the candle at both ends, delegate, it's okay, all the challenges will be all right, you need to get help. Well, she said, if that's the message, some Bhagavan has to hit me on the head with it, then only I'll get the message. And then immediately I thought, I don't think she should say that, And true enough, a teenager had placed a big, 5-gallon bottle of apple juice. Thankfully, the bottle was plastic on the fridge. But in such a precarious way, she opened the freezer door to get something for the host. And then it fell on her head. The whole thing stunned her. She was blinking. And then she said, okay, I get the message. Bhagavan obliges, no problem. And, and this is the form it takes. This is the form it takes. Pritya eva. So just by your own act of love, even if it appears fake to you, and even if it appears lowly to you, like what can I give Bhagavan who has everything, like Sudama felt, Pritya eva ashu. Ashu means quickly. Prasanna san param kuryad anugraham. So the final anugraha is made. Should I study Vedanta or not? Fadar, a Bhagavad Gita book falls on your head. You can't but conclude that okay, this is a yes. Correct? Yeah, these things happen, and all kinds of stories. I mean, and India is full of these stories. And because here, there, we don't take things complacently. We don't say, one more book fell on the head. How inconvenient. No, I'm going to sue the person who threw. No, I'm going to bless the person. Thank you for throwing this. Yeah, this is different. You don't, in India is rife with these stories because somewhere we are still alive. The heart is alive to bhakti. So we see the extraordinary in the ordinary, which is the first characteristic and the first prasada of the bhakta. In the ordinary you see something extra. That is what the knowledge of India stands for. That is what bhakti stands for. And here in the West, where there is spiritual poverty, what do? In the extraordinary we see the ordinary. What a travesty. That's what it is. So the ability to just delight in everything, that is the prasada of bhakti. Next one. Ya pritiravivekanam
Ya pritiravivekanam
Vishayeshvanapayini
Vishayeshvanapayini
Tvamanusmaratas same
Tvamanusmaratas same
Hridayanmapasarpatu.
Hridayanmapasarpatu.
Very interesting connection and a way of doing it. Ya pritihi anapayini. This is how you have to take it. Ya pritihi anapayini sa me hridayat ma apasarpatu. That is the main clause on which all these other things are added on. So ya pritihi means that love, that delight, that capacity to delight in everything, which is really bhakti, which is the outpouring of bhakti, which is the effect of bhakti, which is the precursor of bhakti, which is non-separate from bhakti. That love for everything in the universe, that lovingness and that love which is outpouring, which is what ya pritihi anapayini qualifies the word pritihi. Ya pritihi anapayini. What kind of priti it is? It is not a priti that comes and goes. Apayi means comes and goes. Anapayi does not come and go. Meaning what? Constant. That constant love, the constant delight, because nobody wants to feel love for 5 minutes and then feel hatred. Correct? So one's nature is constant love, and that constant love, anapayini priti ya, that anapayini priti sa me hridayat, that that may it never depart from my heart. Very poetic. Sa me hridayan ma apasarpatu. May that bhakti in the form of love for everything, in the form of delight of everything as Bhagavan, never leave my heart. That is the main sentence. And may it always be, my whole life be spent, Tvam anusmarataha, remembering you as everything in everything. May that love be expressed as remembrance of you behind each and everything that I love. May I see you, may I remember you, may I remember means repeatedly recognize you as the source of everything. Behind all the nama rupas that I love, it's you. So sa me hridayat ma apasarpatu, may it never depart from my heart. Even in English it's rhyming. Yeah. Sa me hridayan ma apasarpatu. Sarp, to slip away. Sarpaha, that which slithers. So apasarpatu, may it not slip away when I'm not looking. Suddenly from delight I go to what? despair. May that never happen as long as I have time to spare to see you in everything and to sing your praises in all names and all forms. May I do that. And then this Preeti, unfortunately, what happens? Avivekanam Vishayeshu Anapayini. The Anapayini has to come twice. So, what is this Preeti? For the undiscerning ones, Avivekanam Vishayeshu Anapayini. That love which does not depart the heart of the undiscerning ones, people who are avivekis. And where does it sit? It sits in Vishayas, Vishayeshu. It does not depart from the Vishayas. Because that love which is expressed by the people without Viveka, people without Bhakti, how is it expressed? As though attached to the things. Yeah. So the Preeti is Anapayi, but Anapagini, but the Vishayeshu, it is seen in the world of objects which are what? Agamapayi, which keep coming and going. So the Anapayini Preeti, which is the constant love, that is my own nature, is superimposed onto objects that are not constant. So I make, in other words, which I have repeated many times, I try to make the infinite out of the finite. I try to squeeze the finite and hope to get the infinite, like squeezing the stone and getting stone oil. Yeah, yeah, if you squeeze a sunflower seed or a til, what is that, sesame seed, you will get oil. But if you squeeze a stone really hard, you can't get oil. So like this, Anapayini Preeti, that constant love that belongs to the self, that is the truth of the self, when it is expressed in what? In objects, that means one is a aviveki. So in other words, please bless me to have viveka so that I know what to fall in love with. If I fall in love with you, you are a superimposed version of me, a separated, an artificially separated version of me. So may I see you as the constant one, and may I direct all my preeti there. The constant preeti, very beautiful poetry here. The constant preeti, may it be directed towards the constant one who is constantly in my heart, who lives, who may reside constantly in my heart through the constant remembrance and the constant expression of the bhakti. And what is that constant love? That constant love is nothing but that which the people of very little discernment are constantly focusing on the inconstant. You see how, you see this poetry. It's sheer poetry. A lot of wordplay between constant and inconstant. That constant love which people who have no viveka direct towards the inconstant, may that love constantly flow in my heart as a constant remembrance of that which is you, who is the only constant one in this world of inconstant things. That is the, that is what it is. Beautiful. It's a very good place to stop, because we are stopping at a prayer. Who doesn't want this prayer? You can memorize this and chant this. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And of course this prayer has blessed him and indirectly all of us, because we are, it has survived for us to read this and understand this. So we'll stop here. It's a good stopping place. Next class is at the 24th of July. Yeah, 24th of July, Sunday, same time. Okay? Yeah. Huh? 23rd maybe, yeah. That Sunday, I don't know if it's 23rd or 24th. 24th is the Sunday, okay. Then if Sunday is the 24th, then it's on the 24th. Just go home and look at your calendars. It's that Sunday. Okay? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय
पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते
ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ Any questions? Thank you. Oh.